Dude, Sasha is so into you. Why do you keep ignoring her? And Haley was totally checking you out earlier. Oh, come on, guys. You know that Jaden only loves one girl. Melanie!
My friends were total idiots sometimes, but they weren't wrong. Countless girls were into me, but I only had eyes for Melanie. There was just something different about her, something dark and mysterious. She never really tried to fit in with other girls at all. Most of the girls at my school behaved like copies of each other. They wore the same clothes and had the same hairstyles and even spoke the same way. But Melanie, she didn't care. She was herself. And while almost every girl was head over heels for me, Melanie ignored me.
Why don't you just try talking to her?
I've tried, but she ignores me all the time, or just gives me one-word answers.
Well, try harder.
Well, thanks to my social studies teacher, I wouldn't have to try very hard. She walked in one day with a big announcement.
So guys, your final project involves pair work, and I've decided to pair you all up with people you don't usually talk to. People who aren't your friends. So you'll take this more seriously.
This project would send me straight into Melanie's arms, but you have to keep watching to see how our story unfolded.
So here are your partners. Go sit next to them and make it snappy, because we have to begin. Braxton and Trinity, Tori and Trevor, Jaden and Melanie.
I froze. I didn't hear anything she said after that because I was just frozen. Then, my buddy Jackson hit me on the arm and I snapped out of it.
Go sit next to her, quick!
He winked. I got up and sat next to Melanie. She didn't even look at me. Our teacher explained what the project was about, and I realized that Melanie and I would have to meet up sometime to complete it. Could I turn it into a date? I was so excited. After the class, she finally turned towards me and said,
So I guess we have no choice but to do this. And since I actually care about my grades, do you want to meet up on Saturday to finish this?
Sure. Where do you want to meet up?
You can come to my house. What's your number? I'll send you the address.
I gave her my number, then she left. It was only Monday, and Saturday felt like it was an eternity away. The night before, I couldn't sleep, and on the day, I nearly jumped out of my shoes when I saw a text message from her. It read, "Here's my address. See you at lunchtime," and she typed the address below. She surprisingly lived quite close to me. I just had to take a bus for 5 minutes, and the rest was walkable. When I got there, though, I was shocked out of my mind. I didn't know that Melanie's family was filthy rich. At first, I even thought I was at the wrong house because it was so huge, but I saw her looking through one of the windows. Most rich kids at my school boasted about it, but Melanie didn't, and that made me like her even more. Now, you know how they say that most rich people are snobs and can be mean and unapproachable? Melanie's family was the total opposite. The door shot open and her two older brothers came running out.
Hey, Jaden, Melanie's waiting upstairs, but you can come to the video game room when you're done with your little project. We need an extra player. I'm Chase. And I'm Sawyer.
You guys have a room just for video games?
Yeah, doesn't everyone? Anyway, nice to meet you, Jaden. There's Melanie. Have fun and see you later.
Thanks. Melanie came downstairs to get me because I'd have probably gotten lost if I tried to find her room on my own.
Sorry about my brothers. They're weird.
I don't think they're weird. They're just super friendly.
Yeah, and that's weird.
We worked for a while and then I went to play games with Chase and Sawyer. I was having so much fun that I lost track of time. It was so late that Sawyer had to drive me home. He had such a cool car. Even after our project was done, Chase and Sawyer kept inviting me over. And before I knew it, the whole family knew and loved me. Well, except Melanie, who seemed to love ignoring me. Then one evening, I was having dinner with them and his mom asked me something totally unexpected.
Hey, Jaden. This summer we're traveling to our island and we'll spend a few weeks there. We think you'd love it. Would you like to come? We'll pay for everything.
Wow, you guys have an island?
Well, of course, honey. We're rich.
That sounds awesome. Of course I'd love to join.
We're gonna have so much fun.
Everyone seemed excited that I was coming along. Well, except Melanie. She showed no emotions. Anyway, let's skip through the boring parts about asking my parents for permission and packing. In a few weeks, I joined my new favorite family on their private jet, and off we went. When we got there, they took me to the main beach house, because there were plenty, but I'll get to that in a while. Then Chase and Sawyer showed me around.
So we each have our own beach, and each beach has a beach house. Sawyer's is full of surf gear, but I prefer snorkeling and scuba diving. We can do a bit of both.
Cool. I hung out with the guys the first 2 days. On the third day, the real drama began. I was snorkeling with Chase for about half an hour. We had swum a bit far from the shore because he had told me the further we went, the more interesting things we'd see. After a while, I turned around looking for Chase, but he wasn't around. I instantly panicked. Did something happen to him? I swam quickly to the next beach, which just happened to be Melanie's. She was sitting on the sand near the shore, looking worried. "Hey Melanie, I lost track of Chase. Should we call your parents or something? He was right behind me, and then he was gone. By the way, what are you looking so worried about?"
Chase does that sometimes, but he's really a great swimmer. He's probably on another beach discovering something. Don't worry about it.
Okay, but why are you sitting here looking scared?
Well, I came here for some peace and quiet, but when I tried to leave, I saw a snake. I tried a different path out, but I saw more snakes. I don't know how to get out. My cell phone has no signal, and I don't know how to reach my parents. The power in my beach house is out too.
Snakes? Okay, get up. I'm sure we can find a way out. She got up and followed me. I felt like her strong knight in shining armor until I reached the bushes and nearly tripped and fell because there, right in front of me, was the most massive snake I had ever seen. Oh my gosh.
I told you.
Well, let's just try to get out over here. I ran to the opposite end of the beach and asked her to follow me. We were able to walk for about 2 minutes in the bushes, which would take us back to everyone. But
Be careful, Jaden. Look.
I couldn't believe it. It was like a ridiculous nightmare. I'd heard of snakes on a plane, but snakes on some rich people's island? We ran all the way back to the beach house like tiny mice being chased by a huge cat. Well, why don't we just swim to Chase's beach? Then we can go stay with your parents in the main beach house.
You're gonna laugh if I tell you this, but I can't swim.
She looked like she was going to cry, but I laughed anyway. You own a whole beach and you can't swim?
I'm afraid.
That's okay. We'll find another way. Don't worry. We can just stay here tonight. I'm sure the beach house has food and stuff we can use to make light when it gets dark.
Okay.
We went inside and I went to look through her kitchen. The pantry was loaded. I made us some snacks and we went to sit on the balcony outside.
Wow, this is good. I didn't know you could cook.
Yeah, it's one of my many hidden talents. We ate and spoke for hours. When I saw that it was about to get dark, I went inside to search every cupboard for candles or lamps. Luckily, just when I was about to give up, I found 3 kerosene lamps. I lit them and we went inside the living room.
Can you make sure all the doors are locked and all the windows are sealed? I don't want any strange creatures coming in here tonight.
Sure. For once, I felt noticed and appreciated by Melanie. She was too afraid to sleep for the rest of the night, so we just stayed up and got to know each other. It was sort of like my dream date, minus the snakes. The morning came and she fell asleep. I made some breakfast with whatever I could find and waited until she woke up. We ate and spent the rest of the day together. Then, just as I was starting to wonder why no one had bothered to look for us yet, she said,
Jaden, I have something to tell you.
"What?
I've had a crush on you for the longest time now.
What?" I was in shock.
I was the one who asked my parents to invite you here. They know. My brothers know too.
I've had a crush on you for ever. All my friends know. I ignore every single girl because I only have eyes for you. Then we kissed, and it was like a dream come true.
Come, let's get out of here.
She held my hand and led me out of the house. But what about the snakes?
They're not real. This is all a setup so we could be trapped here for a while. I didn't know how else to tell you I liked you.
I'm pretty sure this all seemed totally insane to you, but it actually made me like Melanie a little more. We walked until we got to the main house. Melanie's whole family was waiting for us with silly grins on their faces.
So, are you two a couple yet? Yes, Mom. Great! Let's go to Paris to celebrate.
Wait, what? So since then, I've been dating this girl who has these cool parents who fly me to all these different cool parts of the world, and I'm having a blast. I mean, I'd have a blast even without that stuff simply because Melanie is finally by my side now. She's the best girlfriend in the world.
I always thought that sisters were supposed to be close, Have each other's back, talk about boys, and share secrets. Boy, was I wrong. My sister, Kathy, is a jealous psycho. If it wasn't for my boyfriend, Anthony... Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. If you want to know what happened, watch this video all the way till the end.
Hey, Hillary. I heard Anthony was gossiping about what a rotten girlfriend you are to Jake and his popular goons.
Anthony and I looked up from the television and stared at Kathy.
Are you going to tell her, Anthony? Or should I?
Kathy twirled her hair on her finger and smiled slyly.
Tell her what?
That you were kissing Dahlia. You know, the pretty red-headed cheerleader behind the bleachers during lunch.
I closed my eyes and tried to block out Kathy and her lies. She always does this when Anthony comes over. If I ignore her, hopefully she'll go away. But Kathy decided to sit between Anthony and I. I scooted across and turned to her and smiled. So, Kathy, how's Kirk, your crush? Is he still hanging out with Dahlia and Haley? Is he too busy with them to notice that you're alive? Kathy shot me an annoyed look before she got up from the sofa and went to her bedroom. I snuggled next to Anthony and we continued watching our movie. My sister is a selfish brat, and it's sad to say my parents are to blame. When Kathy was younger, she had a heart condition, which led to her having a dozen surgeries. Mom and Dad, even though they received a clean bill of health from the doctors for Kathy, still treat her like a China doll. She doesn't do any chores, she gets away with everything, and she gets anything she wants, including things that are mine. Can you believe it? I can't wait to be legally old enough so I can leave and never return. Later that evening, Anthony and I ordered a pizza. Even though I'm not fond of Kathy, I placed 3 slices of pizza on a plate and went to her bedroom. I asked her if she wanted a pizza and she said no. I turned around and went back to the TV room to sit with Anthony. About 5 minutes later, Kathy skipped into the room.
Hillary,
She asked sweetly.
can I use your tablet, please?
I sighed heavily. Kathy, the last time you borrowed my tablet, you broke it. And then I had to save my allowance money to buy a new one.
I promise I'll be careful with it.
She smiled. Kathy, I said no. After my response, Kathy screeched so loudly, I thought all the windows in the house would shatter. As usual, when Kathy acts this way, my parents come from wherever they are to see why baby Kathy is so upset.
Kathy, honey, what's wrong?
Mom looked between Kathy and I. Kathy sniffled and wiped her eyes.
Hillary doesn't want to give me any pizza, and then Anthony told me if I wanted a slice, that I'd have to pay him for it.
What?
Anthony and I were shocked. Anthony never said that, and I offered you pizza and you said you didn't want any, I shouted.
Why are you shouting at Kathy, Hillary? I think it's time for Anthony to leave.
Dad looked at Anthony sternly. I'm sorry, Anthony. I'll see you at school tomorrow. I walked him to the door. As soon as the door closed, Dad looked at me.
I don't want to see you with that boy again.
But Dad, Anthony didn't do anything. I can date whoever I want. You can't stop me. Kathy's lying.
Go to your room now.
Dad yelled. I picked up the pizza box, which still had a few slices.
No, leave the pizza there and go to your room.
I threw the box on the sofa, went to my room, slammed the door, and locked it. The next day at school, I met Anthony by my locker where we meet every morning. I hugged him. I am so sorry about last night. I am so sick and tired of Kathy.
Hell, there must be something you can do, we can do to get her to stop. I'm sure we can both come up with a plan to prove to your parents that Kathy is playing both of them.
I'm not sure what else I can do. I've tried talking to them, but they don't care. Kathy is their miracle child and she can do no wrong.
What if we recorded her during an episode? Do you think that will work?
I actually tried this before. I had my tablet and I used Dad's camera. My parents were mad because I used the camera without asking first. According to Mom, Kathy was just expressing herself. It's always a lose-lose situation for me. And it's just so frustrating when you see someone's true colors and other people don't.
Don't worry, Hill. We will find a way.
Anthony squeezed my hand as we walked to the class. As I took notes for my first class, I couldn't believe how relaxed I felt. School was my safe haven. It was the place I could come to clear my head and be free from Kathy. I loved my parents, but I was beginning to resent them because they never stood up for me. Sometimes, I feel as though I could just throw some clothes in a bag, run away, and never return. As any child, all I wanted was to be loved by my parents and get attention from them as Kathy does. That afternoon, when I got home, Mom and Dad were sitting in the living room waiting for me. I greeted them, and as I was about to walk off, Mom spoke.
Where are you going? Don't you have something to tell us?
Something like what?
I don't understand where we went wrong with you.
Dad rubbed his temples. What are you guys talking about?
How could you do this? You are so young and now you've thrown your whole life away. For some boy.
Mom shrieked. What boy? Mom got up and handed me her phone and pressed play. In the video, there stood me and Anthony in the hallway. What I said to Anthony made my jaw drop. Did the person in the video just say pregnant?
The person? Isn't that you in the video?
Yes, but I never told Anthony that I'm pregnant. That's not my voice. My face reddened and my eyes bulged as I knew Kathy was behind this. Kathy, I know you're behind this, I shouted as I stepped towards her room. Dad grabbed my hand.
The three of us are going to get to the bottom of this.
Dad dragged me to the car even though I begged and pleaded, and Mom just followed without saying a word. That was the most humiliating afternoon of my life. At the doctor's office, Dad insisted that he come into the room since he was the one paying the bill. After the checkup, the doctor told my parents that I wasn't pregnant and that I was still a virgin. By the time we left the doctor's office, I just had no more fight in me. Kathy greeted us by the door when we got home.
How was the doctor's office, Hillary?
I was still numbed by the humiliation that I had just faced. I didn't have the strength to respond.
Mom and Dad, I just wanted to let you know that Hillary didn't say that. It was a prank. After the pizza incident, I just wanted to get back at her. Oh.
Mom said.
Well, at least Hillary got a much-needed checkup out of it.
I felt drained and defeated. I shook my head, went to my bedroom, locked my door, and cried myself to sleep. The very next day, I decided enough was enough, and I began to plan my big escape. When my parents bought groceries, I walked till the others weren't home to hide a few canned items in a bag under my bed. I also took money from my parents. I kept my door locked at all times and kept my key on a chain around my neck. It took me a few weeks before I told Anthony my plan to run away. I planned to leave on Halloween night. By then, I should have everything that I need. I want you to come with me.
Hill, I can't just pick up and drop out of school and leave my family. There must be another way to get your parents to see Kathy for who she really is.
I thought you'd be happy for me. You're just like my parents. It's always about Kathy. I came to you because I thought you'd understand, but I was wrong. I can't do this anymore. We're through. I don't ever want to see you again. I walked away from Anthony and didn't look back. Finally, the day arrived and I was so ready to leave my family behind and start my new life. Every year for Halloween, our family puts up decorations the day of. Mom says she doesn't want to keep them up any longer than they need to be. As soon as Kathy and I got home from school, Mom asked us to get the decorations from the basement.
Dad will be home late, and I'm running to the store to pick up some candy for tonight.
Kathy loves Halloween, so getting her to help with the decorations is always easy. She ran to the basement and Mom told me goodbye. The door closed behind me as I walked down the basement steps.
Come on, Slowpoke. We've got to get these boxes out quickly,
Kathy said as she began to pile the boxes by the steps of the basement. I rolled my eyes and followed Kathy's lead. When we had all the boxes out, Kathy took one box up the basement steps and tried to open the door. She turned the knob, then shook the handle on the door. What's going on, Kathy?
The stupid door won't budge.
She pushed her shoulders against the door. Stop joking around, Kathy. This isn't funny.
Do you see me laughing? The door is stuck.
I ran up the stairs and tried the door. Kathy was right. It was stuck. We tried to push against the door, but our attempts were futile.
Mom! Mom!
Kathy slammed her hands against the door. Mom went to the grocery store. There's nothing we can do until she comes back.
Did you bring your phone?
No, I don't carry my phone everywhere, you know?
Just like you to never get anything right. If you had your phone, we could have called Mom. It's your fault we're locked in here.
I rolled my eyes. It's not like you brought your phone either. I walked down the steps and sat on the table in the corner of the room. I hope Mom will come back soon because I'm not sure how long I can survive being trapped here with Kathy.
See, this is why Mom and Dad don't love you. They can't depend on you to get anything right. And you know, one time, Anthony tried to kiss me. He made me promise not to say anything, but you're my sister, and I think you should know.
I closed my eyes and leaned my head back. I had to keep my cool. After today, I'd never have to be in the same room as Kathy. Annoyed that I wasn't saying anything, Kathy continued her hurtful remarks. She even pointed her finger in my face a few times. The only thing keeping me from knocking her out was knowing that I'd never have to put up with her again. When Kathy realized she wasn't getting the reaction from me that she wanted, She began to toss things from the shelves onto the floor.
Guess who won't be able to go out with her friends tonight? Because they'll be cleaning the basement for the rest of the night. I'll give you a hint. It's not me.
I'm not cleaning this up. Kathy laughed.
Who do you think Mom and Dad are going to believe? I'll tell them you got so angry with me that you began to throw things at me. I control Mom and Dad. They do what I say, when I say. And well, you are a nobody.
Don't worry. You'll have them all to yourself soon. The three of you can be a perfect family.
But then I'll have no one to torment. Imagine Mom and Dad treating me like a China doll when I've been playing on the schoolgirls' soccer team for the past 6 months. I know I can't tell Mom and Dad, or I'll lose my sick card.
The door opened. It was Anthony. I jumped off the table. What are you doing here?
I wanted to talk to you. I knocked, but no one answered. The windows were open, so I knew someone was home. When I realized the front door was open, I came and checked the house.
Who cares why he's here, as long as I don't have to stay here 1 second longer with you?
She pushed past Anthony.
Now you can help your pathetic girlfriend clean this mess up.
Anthony walked down the stairs and stood in front of me.
You don't have to run away.
I've already made up my mind. Anthony extended his hand to me.
Trust me.
I took his hand and he led me up the stairs and into the kitchen. There, by the table, was Mom, Dad, and Kathy. Kathy didn't look too happy. In front of them was a laptop. Anthony turned to me. His eyes were red and he smiled sheepishly.
When you told me that you wanted to run away, I told Mom.
Anthony's mother was a psychologist. She called my parents and asked to meet with them. When Anthony's mom confronted them about Kathy, they didn't want to accept that they were a part of the problem in the way that Kathy acted. That's when his mom got permission to set up cameras in the basement. So you've been recording us all this time? Anthony nodded. Shortly after, our family began therapy. It was the silver lining after being in a dark tunnel for so long. Mom and Dad never apologized for what they did. They said it's all in the past and therapy meant we were moving forward. I saw minor changes at home, like Kathy now had chores to do and Mom and Dad ignored most of her tantrums. While their minor changes didn't make me run away then, as soon as I reached 18, I moved away from home and Anthony and I got an apartment together. Just because people are related to you doesn't mean you have to be close with them. Having a peace of mind is better than having a broken heart.
Mommy, no! Daddy, please stay! I was blinded by my own tears. I was only 7 years old and my parents were leaving each other. My world was falling apart.
Mindy, what's happening?
What's going to happen to us?
My little siblings Trevor and Trina said while expecting me to have answers. I was more confused. It was a total disaster and it was about to get worse. Before I continue, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you do this in the next 5 seconds, somebody you love will give you some very good news tomorrow. Don't forget to hit that notification bell too. That night, we were left home alone. My dad left first, then my mom stormed out of the house to go look for him. My dad reported my mom to the police, but they were both charged with child neglect for leaving us alone in the house. We did not expect what happened next. We were taken away and sent to live in some kind of orphanage. Well, they tried not to call it that, but that's exactly what it was. It was named Hubert's Home for Children. The manager was a short, stubby man named Stuart. There were 2 big dormitories with about 20 beds. Girls and boys weren't allowed to stay together, so Trina and I were separated from Trevor. He was only 3 years old, and I knew he was terrified. The food in that place was awful, and if we didn't finish it, we were punished. During the day, we were sent to our ordinary schools, and someone would pick us up after. I never told my friends at school what was going on. I really missed my parents, and I wondered why they never tried to get us back. After a few months at the orphanage, my siblings and I were taken into Stuart's office. I thought we were in trouble.
Hello, children. How are you today?
We're okay, I replied.
I have some good news. You're going to a foster family. However, there is one thing.
What?
The nice couple only wants 2 children, so we've decided to send Trina and Trevor.
What? You're splitting us up?
I have no choice.
You can't do that. Besides, we don't want to live with some strange couple. We want to go back to our mom and dad.
Well, that's not going to happen. I make the decisions around here and I already made up my mind. Go and help your little brother and sister to pack up. Their new family will be here soon to pick them up.
I couldn't believe that this stupid, awful man was doing this. I tried to think of a plan for the three of us. Maybe we could run away together. Maybe we could escape. But I was only 7. I was little, but I was old enough to understand that we would never survive. I helped my siblings pack up, and by the end of the day, they were gone. I had never been so devastated in my life. That night, I cried myself to sleep, and that was when the dream started. I was in the middle of some medieval village. The buildings were made of stone, and the people were dressed in very old-fashioned clothes. There were no cars, just horses and carriages. Children ran around playing while chickens walked around clucking. I looked down at my clothes and was dressed just like everyone else.
Caroline! Caroline!
A little boy called while pulling my arm. Who are you? My name is Mindy. Who is Caroline?
Is this one of your jokes? Your uncle is calling you. He said you must come home now.
Oh, okay. Where do I live?
You're so funny, Caroline. Fine, I'll play along. Follow me.
He took me to a tiny house on the edge of the village. I walked in, and an angry man was sitting in the small kitchen.
Where is the water? I sent you out an hour ago.
What water?
From the well. Now scrub this floor, or I will punish you.
He screamed. Wow, I'm not going to suffer in real life and in this dream too, I thought. I waited for him to leave the room, then I ran outside. I ran and ran until I was deep in the forest. I looked around, and all I could see were trees, grass, and a few flowers. Oh no, what am I going to do now? I'm lost, I thought. Then I felt someone shaking me. I opened my eyes, and that awful Stuart was staring at me.
It took me forever to wake you up, child. Get up and get dressed. You're going to a new school today.
What? Why do I need to change schools?
Don't ask me any questions, child. Hurry up and get ready.
I did as he asked, and I was taken to a school that was closer to the orphanage. I guess they wanted to cut costs, and it would be cheaper to send me there. My new teacher was okay, but my classmates weren't very friendly. I tried to sit next to them and to make conversations during recess, but they ignored me.
It's because you're an orphan girl?
A strange boy Bradley said to me when he saw me looking sad. Oh, okay. Will you be my friend then?
Okay, what do you like to do for fun?
I don't know, but I had a cool dream last night, I said. I told him all about the dream and he ran away laughing. Later I found out he told everyone what I told him, and they all thought I was weird. So my first day was a disaster, but I was excited about falling asleep. Maybe I would dream about something cooler. I rushed to bed that night, and it took a while for me to fall asleep. When I finally did, I was exactly where the dream ended the night before, in the middle of the forest. I looked around and called out to see if anyone was around, but I heard nothing. I sat on a rock and started crying. My real life already sucked. Did my dream life have to as well? Then I felt a tap on my shoulder. I looked up and turned around, but no one was there. Who's there? I heard a faint voice whisper, but I didn't see anyone. And then something flew directly onto my nose. Ouch!
Oh, hi. I'm Angelina, your fairy.
It really was a fairy. She flew off my nose and hovered in front of my face so I could see her properly. She was tiny, blonde, and wore a sparkly pink dress. What do you mean you're my fairy? I asked.
Everyone here is assigned a fairy. They only find us if they run to the forest, though.
Cool, I didn't even know that fairies existed. So what now?
We definitely exist. Come meet the rest of us. Follow me.
Angelina flew away, and I ran to keep up with her.
Oh, sorry. I keep forgetting that you humans can't fly.
When we got to our destination, I was flabbergasted. It was like a miniature magical village. The buildings were colorful, and there were cute little creatures everywhere. Tiny cats, tiny puppies, and so many cute little things flying all over. About 10 fairies flew in front of my face and stared for a while.
Is this her? Yes, I think it is. She's so cute. I think we should make her some new clothes. Where will she sleep? We'll have to build her a house big enough so she could fit. She's so big. Or we could just ask the kind witch to wave her magic wand to create it. Let's go find her.
They flew away, and Angelina whispered in my ear,
You're gonna love it here.
Then I woke up and had to live through another depressing day in my awful life. But do you know what? The dreams kept continuing. Like, I'd never have any other dreams. Whenever I'd go to sleep, it just picked up wherever I left off. By the time I was 14, I was very influential in my magical dream world. I lived in a beautiful mansion filled with all the things I loved. If I couldn't get it in real life, I asked the kind witch to create it for me in my dream. Real life, though? Real life sucked. School didn't get any better. I tried to make friends by talking to them about my life in the fairy village, but all they'd do was laugh at me. But I had nothing else to talk about. This was literally all I had going for me. So I just go to the library and read, and when I was old enough, I started writing stories about my dreams. Then one day, my life made a positive turn. I was in the middle of a boring geography lesson when I was called into the principal's office. I walked in and saw Mr. Stewart and my mom. "Mom!" I squealed. "You came back for me!" They explained that my mother had fought long and hard to get me and my siblings back, and that we'd all be able to live together again. I hadn't seen my brother and sister since that horrible day they were taken away from me. They let me leave early with my mom that day. She had already packed the few things I had from the orphanage. We took a taxi to our house, and when we got there, Trevor and Trina were already there. They ran into my arms, and we hugged for a really long time. They had grown so much.
So kids, what's been happening in your lives?
My mom asked. We stayed up all night talking about how much our lives had changed since we were taken away. Trevor and Trina had it a bit easier than I did, because their foster parents were actually nice. But when I told them of some of my horrible experiences with Stuart, they looked like they felt really sorry for me. In my dream that night, I had a party for everyone in the fairy village and told them that it was because something wonderful had happened in my real world. Life was becoming stable again. When it was time to start high school, I figured that I could make friends because no one would see me as the weird girl with no parents. And it was actually quite easy. My new school was great, and I even met a great guy named Carlos. We started going out, and in a few months, we made it official. My classes were going great too. My favorite was English because my teacher, Miss Jameson, kept telling me how talented I was.
I really think you should start a blog. These fantasy stories you write about the mythical creatures are awesome,
She'd say over and over again. So eventually I listened and I started showing my work to other people. One night I was hanging in my room with Carlos when I got an email from someone who wanted to publish my work.
Hey, Mindy, where do you get these ideas for your stories anyway?
He asked randomly. So I told him all about my childhood and about my interesting dreams. I hoped he'd give me a big hug and tell me that he was proud of me for being so strong. But do you know what he did? He said this.
Gee, I didn't know you were this weird. I have to go now. I just remembered I have to, wash my socks.
Then he ran out of my room and refused to speak to me the next day. That night, Angelina buzzed around my ears while throwing sweets into my mouth.
Don't worry about some boy. If he's leaving you, he's no good for you anyway. He probably has no imagination, and he sounds really boring anyway.
Thanks, Angelina. I don't know what I'd do without you. Carlos had started spreading rumors through school that I was crazy, but by that time, I was too busy to care. At least 2 publishers had contacted me, and they wanted me to write a book for kids about my dreams. But the best thing that happened was that the manager of a popular movie channel read my blog and wanted me to be a scriptwriter for a series on their channel. Mom, do you think I should do it?
Of course, sweetie.
But I haven't even started college.
But this is so many people's dream job. I'm sure you can balance the two anyway. Go for it.
Through this job, I was introduced to celebrities who would play the roles of the different characters in my dream. I even started dating one of them, and someone leaked pictures of us together on a date. All of a sudden, everyone at school wanted to be my friend. Carlos tried to get me back too, but I wasn't interested anymore for obvious reasons.
Everything is great, isn't it?
Angelina said to me the night I had an interview with a famous talk show host. We were sitting near a beautiful lake eating ice cream that changed its flavor after each lick. Yes, everything seems to be working out now. I'm meeting stars. I'm dating stars. Everyone wants to be my friend and my family is all together. Well, except my dad. I'm not sure where he is, but I don't miss him that much.
Well, my work here is done then.
What do you mean?
Don't worry. We might come back when you need us again. But until then, be strong and always believe in yourself.
And I haven't had the dream again since. I've been dreaming about boring, random stuff now, but I'm not too worried. Like she said, she'll find me again when I really need her.
Hey, Talia, how did you enjoy my party last night? Randy asked. Oh, you weren't there. That's right, because I don't hang with losers. But guess who was there? Ronaldo, my soon-to-be boyfriend, she said as she smacked the books from my hands and then walked away, cackling with her friends. Hi, my name is Talia. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Oh yeah, and hit that notification bell to get these amazing stories first. If you do, you'll find the person of your dreams. You would think that all the mean girls would have stayed in high school, but no, some of them follow you to college as well. I was looking forward to the upcoming summer break where I could get away from Randy. I already knew what I wanted to do to pass my time. While scrolling through my social media, I came across this new reality TV series, Island Troopers, that was set to be taped somewhere in the South Pacific Islands. Wouldn't it be lovely to be stuck on an island with Ronaldo Castine? Who is Ronaldo, you ask? Only the most handsome, adventurous troop leader of the Cub Scouts my brother Davian ever had. Before collecting my brother after a meeting one afternoon, I went to the bathroom, and when I came out the stall, there stood Randy leaning against the bathroom door. Do you really think you have a chance with Ronaldo? She snarled. Randy was also a troop leader. Move, I demanded coldly. Who's going to make me? Randy said as she placed her hands on her hips. As I stepped towards Randy with my fist balled tightly, the bathroom door opened. Oh, there you are, Randy, Mrs. Walker, the head of the Cub Scouts said. I need you to help me finish planning our retreat over the summer break. Why, sure, Mrs. Walker, Randy said in a fake, innocent voice. I watched as Randy turned and walked away behind Mrs. Walker. Eventually, I found my little brother, and Ronaldo was there too, waving goodbye to the kids of the Cub Scouts. I immediately felt my knees go weak. Hey, Ronaldo, I said nervously. Have you ever heard of Island Troopers? No, he said. It's a reality show where you and another person would be stranded on an island. I've already signed up and I was wondering if you'd like to partner with me. We have a chance of winning $2 million. I said hopefully. I'm not sure whether I want to spend my vacation on a deserted island when there are so many other things to do. But wouldn't it be an awesome story to come back and tell your troops how you roughed it out on an island and how you put all your training from the scouts to use? I think the boys would really be impressed. Wouldn't you be, Derek? I spun around to my little brother who nodded enthusiastically. I could see the wheels in Ronaldo's head spinning as he was trying to weigh the pros and cons. Okay, I'll go. Ronaldo smiled. He gave me his number and told me to send him all the details. We said goodbye and I drove out the car park. Now I have to convince my mom and dad, I thought to myself. That night during dinner, I casually brought up the topic of me wanting to spend summer on a deserted island with a friend of mine. Think about it. I could win $1 million, which means I could pay my own college fees, I told my parents. So, who would you be going to this island with? My mother quizzed. She's going with Ronaldo, my brother said, making kissing noises. That is totally out of the question, my father said, slamming his fist down on the table. Dad, it's no big deal, I said and further explained. I told my parents that a camera crew would be there, so no funny business would take place with Ronaldo and I. What I didn't tell them was the camera crew would only be around a few hours a day. I also assured them that anytime I wanted to quit, that I would be allowed to do so and come home. My parents told me that they would think about it and they changed the conversation. The next day, I didn't think anything of it when my parents said they were going to pick Derek up from his meeting. I was actually happy since I was behind on a few assignments, and I was glad that I didn't have to stop what I was doing. When he got home, Derek knocked on my door and poked his head around the door. Mom and Dad had a little chat with Ronaldo. He smiled and walked away. I shot up from my desk and ran to Derek's room and closed the door behind me. What did Mom and Dad say? What did Ronaldo do? I was almost too afraid to ask. Well, first, Mom asked Ronaldo what he planned to do with her baby girl all alone on an island, and if he planned to make them grandparents. Then Dad told Ronaldo that he knew where he lived, and he had no problem paying him a visit if he laid a finger on you, my brother said, before laughing hysterically. My heart sank, and I felt a part of me die that day. I was so embarrassed, but the thought of Ronaldo and I on a deserted island without Randy brought a smile to my face. Maybe it's not as bad as I thought. I could call Ronaldo tomorrow and straighten everything out. The next day, I called Ronaldo, who was actually amused by what my parents did. He said I was lucky to have parents who actually cared about what happened to me. We laughed about it, and then we chatted for a few minutes before we hung up. My parents also confirmed that I would be allowed to go on the show. It was the best day ever. That night, I dreamt that Ronaldo and I were stranded on an island. I was sipping on a coconut while cooking fish over a fire. Ronaldo was in the water, his shirt off, as the setting sun glistened over his muscular body as he caught the fish with his bare hands. Finally, the day had arrived, and I bid my brother and parents goodbye on the dock. I walked over to meet Ronaldo, and we boarded the ferry with the crew and the other members of the TV show. It took us a few days before we got to the islands, and those few days were fabulous. The last night on the ferry, we signed waivers saying that we weren't to interact with the camera crew unless it was a life or death situation. The camera crew would film us for 6 hours per day. Once we got to the island, we had a choice of waiting for a rescue team to come and get us, or we could quit along the way if it became too much for us. We would also be supplied with water, but we would have to source our own food and shelter. There were also a few bags stored on the island, one particularly with supplies from the TV show. The ferry docked at each island, and the director called the names of each team to get off. Ronaldo and I were the last team to get off the ferry. It took us about 10 minutes to get to swim to the island. I dragged myself onto the island, and I lay on the hot sand. That was the longest 10 minutes of my life. After we rested for a few minutes, we decided that we needed to find the backpacks to see if we could use anything from them as well as the survival backpack. After searching for a while, we found a backpack. It belonged to a man, and I didn't care. I just needed to get out of the wet clothes that I was in. In the backpack was a bag of chocolates. I never enjoyed chocolates so much. After that swim, I was starving. We found one bag. I think maybe we should find shelter and then look for lunch. Ronaldo nodded in agreement. He swung the bag off his shoulder, and we began to scout the land for shelter. Luckily, we found a little wooden hut that wasn't too far from a stream. The roof of the hut needed to be patched at the top, but it would do. We just hoped that it didn't rain. The crew followed us from the time we got to the island. When they finished up for the day and told us we would see them tomorrow, I felt relieved. As soon as the camera crew left, Ronaldo complained about being too hot, and he said he would be inside the hut taking a rest, and if I needed him, that's where he would be. I shrugged and walked out the hut. I decided to do some exploring of my own. My first mission was to locate the survival bag that the crew hid. I walked further into the forested area of the island, making sure to keep tabs of how to get back. The sun peeked through the trees, and suddenly, there was a dark spot. I looked up and spotted a black duffel bag between the trees. I climbed the tree, and immediately I felt my skin being infested by ants. "Oh, great," I said sarcastically. "This tree is full of ants." I got the bag, and with it a few bites as well. I slung it around my shoulder and climbed down. I took a tin of tuna, once on the ground, and ate it quickly. Should I carry the bag back to camp? I spoke to myself. I thought long and hard and decided against it. However, I did take a few necessities that I thought would help with our survival. I also found a more suitable place to store the bag as well. By the time I got back, Ronaldo was up. "Where have you been?" Ronaldo asked with a raised eyebrow. "Well, while some of us were able to get some beauty rest, some of us decided to actually do some work to ensure that we have a fighting chance to win this thing," I said, annoyed. I inhaled deeply. "Look, in order for us to win this, we need to work together." I was able to find a few things that were scattered about the trees. I showed Ronaldo the things that I brought back, but instead of saying thank you, he huffed. And without a word, Ronaldo walked out of the hut and into the forested area. A few seconds after Ronaldo left, I heard a shout. My heart leapt into my throat as I ran out of the hut and towards the sound of the scream. I saw Ronaldo looking as though he saw a ghost. "Ronaldo?" I asked once I was next to him. "What is it?" "I just saw a snake." "I hate snakes," Ronaldo said coldly. My jaw dropped. "What?" Yes, I heard what he said, but I couldn't believe it. "You came to a deserted island and you were afraid of snakes? What did you expect to find here? Fluffy bunny rabbits and unicorns?" I asked, looking at him with a puzzled look on my face. That night I went to bed with hopes that the following day would be better than our first day. Boy, was I wrong. Ronaldo complained about everything. The sun was too hot. The fish were too small. There were too many mosquitoes. Ronaldo complained more than he helped me get anything done. Then to top it off, he sprained his ankle while trying to pick coconuts from one of the trees closer to the shore. The idea of whisking away with Ronaldo and having a great time was quickly unraveling before my eyes. This wasn't as romantic as I hoped. Of course, he played his role well in front of the camera, but once we were alone, the true Ronaldo appeared, as though he had split personalities. One morning, I just couldn't accept Ronaldo's bad attitude anymore, and I decided to take a walk. After walking a little way from the hut, I realized that I forgot my knife and turned back to get it. As I was approaching the hut, I saw Ronaldo coming out of the hut and walking perfectly fine on both feet. I followed him and watched as he ran towards the ocean and dove in. That little trickster. I fumed. He was just faking a sprained ankle. and he had me doing all the fishing and even the patching of the hut alone? Well, let's see what little Mr. Trickster will eat for the rest of the day. I decided that I would not go back to the hut till that night, since there was still a few tins of food in the survival bag. Today, I would just lounge by the stream and relax. By nightfall, I returned to the hut. Hello? Is anyone there? I called as I rubbed the back of my head to ensure I played the role well. I watched as Ronaldo limped out of the hut. Talia, where have you been? I'm starving, he said. Do I know you? Oh, where am I? I asked. The last thing I remember was walking to the stream. I must have slipped and fallen backwards. My voice trailed off. When I woke up, I followed the trail back to here. Ronaldo told me how we came to the island. He also gave me his version of what happened since we had been on the island, including him saving me from a snake and spraining his ankle along the way. I mustered everything up inside, not to roll my eyes as he told his made-up story. Then he said something that knocked the wind out of me. My boyfriend told me that this was a bad idea. Ronaldo sighed. I felt my jaw drop. You have a boyfriend? Yeah, why? He asked. I gulped. Is there any way to get off this island? The next day, Ronaldo spoke with the camera crew. It wasn't long before a rowboat came along and we were heading home. I felt as though I wasted the last 14 days of my life. I never dropped my brother off to meetings again, and before I crushed on anyone again, I decided to do a little background research before I did anything crazy.
Hi, I'm Princess Jana of Estonia, a tiny kingdom somewhere in Europe. My parents, the king and queen of Estonia, always made sure I had everything except freedom. I couldn't go anywhere without someone watching me, and I hated that. All I wanted to do was experience life like a normal teen, and that chance finally came on my 17th birthday when they surprised me with a trip to the Maldives. But as they say, be careful what you wish for. The private jet waited as our limo pulled up. My best friend Emma, my boyfriend Sebastian, and I got out of the limo and walked to the plane. Mr. Boris, my bodyguard, pulled our suitcases. OMG! I can't believe this is real! Somebody pinch me! Sebastian pinched Emma playfully and they laughed. I liked that they got along.
It's just a private jet, Em. My dad owns like 3 of them.
Show off! Emma was my only friend. She'd been picked by my mother and introduced to me on my 5th birthday. My mother had called her my birthday present. Crazy, I know. Sebastian, on the other hand, was the son of a wealthy businessman, and we met when his family visited the palace. Do you guys want to go bungee jumping? I've always wanted to try it. Bungee jumping? Are you insane? The queen will never approve it. She doesn't need to know. Seb, what do you think?
You can go, Jana. We'll cover for you with Mr. Boris. We are good at keeping secrets, right, Em?
Yeah, totally. A few hours later, I stood at a huge bridge as I eagerly awaited my turn to jump. Just then, I spotted a cute guy carrying some jumping gear and figured he worked there. Hello, I'm Jana. You work here, right? It's my first time doing, well, anything. So I guess we'll need to be strapped together for my jump?
Sure. You can strap yourself to me any day. My name is Nicholas, by the way.
What a flirt! Anyway, as I was busy blushing, he squatted and strapped my ankle to his.
I know we just met, but you're going to have to hug me for this one.
I mean, I knew it was for the jump. Why was my heart beating so fast? Without thinking too much, I wrapped my hands around him and closed my eyes.
Ready?
Yes!
Here we go! Hold on tight!
And that is exactly what I did. When we jumped, I squealed all the way through while he laughed. It was the most exhilarating experience of my life. After my adventure, I sneaked back into the hotel, excited to tell Sebastian and Emma all about it, but they were not in the room, so I went looking for them. A few minutes later, I spotted them lounging by our suite's private pool and was about to open the door when I heard Emma mention my name. I'm so sick of Jana. If I hear her complain one more time about not being able to live a normal life, my ears will bleed.
Right? And I'm only dating her because the king requested my dad that I do it as a favor to him.
Wait, what? I thought you were into her.
No way! I can't even stand her. Besides, you're way hotter than her.
I think you're hot too. You can do way better than her entitled highness. I watched in shock as Sebastian moved towards Emma and kissed her. Enraged, I stormed into view and they jumped apart. Are you freaking kidding me? How could you do this to me? And how could you say all those awful things about me? Well, everything you just heard, it's all true. We can't stand you. She wasn't even sorry. And it's not my fault that Seb likes me better than a whiny little brat like you. I was so mad I lunged at her and we fell into the pool. A whiny brat? How dare you? Let me go!
Whoa, ladies. Let's all calm down and talk about this, please.
There's nothing to talk about. I'm done with both of you. I got out of the pool, angry, and as I walked away, I slipped and fell. Ow! As I lay there clutching my knee, Mr. Boris came rushing in.
Jonna, what happened here?
I caught them saying mean things about me. Then they kissed and
Please, take a deep breath. Everything will be fine, darling. But right now, we have to go back home, so your personal doctor can check your knee.
As he carried me out of there, I felt safe, like everything would be okay. Mr. Boris always made me feel this way. He was more of a father to me than the king. Thank you for always being there for me, Mr. Boris. When we arrived back home, Mr. Boris wheeled me into the living room. When my mother saw me, she got off her chair and rushed towards me. Jonna, what happened? Jonna went bungee jumping. We tried to stop her, but she didn't want to listen to us. Have you completely lost your mind? Mother,
She tried to take us with her, but we refused.
Sebastian and Emma really wanted me to get into trouble. How could you be so reckless? We trusted you this one time, but you failed. And you... How could you let her do that? You're so lucky I can't fire you.
I followed her and watched her. She was not in any danger, Your Highness.
What? I thought I was alone.
You're never alone, my girl.
Go to your room, now! Don't you mean my prison cell? As Mr. Boris pushed me out of the room, I couldn't help but wish that he was the king. A few days later, Mr. Boris and I were out on the lawn when he knelt next to me and handed me a necklace with a locket on it. What's this?
It's my birthday gift to you. I'm sorry your trip didn't go as planned.
Wow, thank you so much. It's beautiful. I'm never taking it off. As Mr. Boris helped me put on the necklace, we saw my mother walk towards us, a bunch of servants following her closely. Mother, is everything okay? Yes, Jonna. I'm here to introduce you to your nurse. We hired him just a few minutes ago. Nurse? I don't need a nurse. My knee is much better and My words died in my throat when a familiar guy moved from behind the servants and stood right in front of me.
Hello, Princess. I'm Nicholas. It's a pleasure to meet you, for the first time ever.
Clearly, Nicholas didn't want the queen to know we'd met before because she'd probably fire him. On second thought, Mom, I don't mind being pushed around and taken care of. I don't want to strain my knee too much. Very well, Jonna. I'll see you later. And please do everything Nicholas asks.
You heard her.
This was going to be fun. A few minutes later, Nicholas pushed me down a paved path, and when we were far enough, I asked him what I'd been dying to ask. How are you here? Aren't you supposed to be in the Maldives?
Because I live here. I was just in the Maldives for vacation.
Why didn't you tell me you weren't the jumping instructor?
You looked scared, so I figured I assist the damsel in distress.
Whoa! There's no damsel in distress here.
If you say so, Princess.
Whatever. Just wheel me back to my room now. I'm quite tired and I need to rest.
First day, you're already inviting me to your room.
Fine, I'll just wheel myself. I wheeled myself away from Nicholas, and just when I rounded a corner, I saw Sebastian and Emma kissing in front of the palace fountain. I took out my phone and took a picture of them. When I got a chance, I'd use that against them. Disgusting! Careful, you might hurt your other leg and die of jealousy altogether. And then, all of a sudden, when Emma noticed Nicholas, she threw herself at him like a groupie. Hi, handsome. I'm Emma. And you are?
Not interested.
As much as I was enjoying Emma's embarrassment, I noticed something much more interesting. The main gate was wide open, and without thinking, I took off.
Hey, where are you going?
Anywhere but here. I can't look at these two anymore. I expected him to stop me, but to my surprise, he smiled.
Okay, well, just wait here while I go get my car.
As he walked away, I felt so excited. Nicholas was my ticket to freedom. Nicholas drove us to a movie theater, and when we arrived, he parked his car and took his shirt off. What are you doing?
Relax, Princess. It's not that kind of date. I'm just changing into regular clothes. I can't go to a movie in scrubs.
Of course. Makes sense. Did you say date? I've never been on a date before.
What about Mr. Casanova back there? I assume he was your boyfriend at some point?
He was, but we never went out anywhere.
Well, that's his loss. Let's go. They're showing a new horror movie. This should be fun.
He was right. It was fun. For him, at least. I, on the other hand, screamed and covered my face so many times, much to Nicholas's amusement. After the movie, Nicholas pushed me out and was about to help me back in his car when I stopped him. Wait, will you do me one last favor?
Oh, God. Please stop doing that. You look like you're having a seizure.
I really thought I was being cute.
Okay. What do you want?
I want to drive your car.
Absolutely not. You're hurt.
Just then, I stood up from my wheelchair, snapped the car keys from Nicholas, and climbed into the driver's seat.
What the heck? You can walk?
Yeah, my knee is all healed. It's a miracle.
Now get in.
Okay, so let me get this clear. You could walk this whole time.
Yeah, sorry. You're not mad?
What? No. It's obvious you pretended just so you could keep me around. You like me.
He was right, but there was no way I was going to admit it. Shut up! As soon as I stepped on the gas, the car jerked backwards and rammed right into a tree. Nick, are you okay?
Yes, Princess. I'm okay. I can't say the same for my car.
I'm so sorry. My parents are gonna kill me.
You're right. They are.
Nick and I turned to see Mr. Boris standing there. Mr. Boris? Where did you come from?
I found you through the mobile tracker on your phone.
Of course my phone had a tracker. I wasn't even surprised anymore.
Don't worry about the car. I've already called a tow company. I need to get you home now.
I'm really sorry, Nick. As soon as we walked into the living room, my father walked towards us, angry.
Boris, you were supposed to bring Jana back hours ago. And wait, you can walk? Your Majesty, the princess went to a movie, and I didn't want to interrupt because she looked happy for once.
Are you saying that she's unhappy here? Yes, that's what I've been trying to say all this time. I even had to pretend just so I could spend time with Nicholas. You ungrateful girl! We should have never adopted you in the first place! Of all the things I expected her to say, that was not one of them. And as if summoned by the devil himself, Emma and Sebastian chose that moment to walk in. Oh, she walks!
I knew it. She was faking it so she could keep that stupid nurse around.
Shut up, both of you! Did you just say I'm adopted? What? This is too good.
I knew all along you didn't have royal blood in you.
You two need to get out! Don't talk to your friends like that! Friends? These two betrayed me and you didn't even bother to ask for my side of the story! Oh, honey, I'm sure it was a momentary lapse of judgment on their part. Seeing how clueless my mother was, I fished out the picture I took of them earlier and showed it to her. See what my so-called friends have been doing right under my nose? She took one look at the photo and grabbed Emma by her ears. Is this what I paid you for? I am so sorry, Your Highness. Quiet! Both of you, get out! Emma was finally getting what she deserved. But I couldn't take the tension anymore, so I stormed out. I thought my day couldn't get any crazier. Boy, was I wrong. After I stormed out, I went to the palace garden, and as I sat crying, Mr. Boris joined me.
You look so much like your mother. You know, your real mother, I mean.
You knew my mom?
Yes, she was my wife.
What? I don't understand. As I waited for Mr. Boris to explain, he reached into his pocket and took out a necklace that looked exactly like the one I was wearing.
This belonged to your mom. The one you're wearing belongs to me. We had them made when you were born. This is a picture of you and your mom.
But I don't understand. Why did you give me away?
I had no choice. When you were born, your mother and I could barely provide for you. One day you became very ill, and I decided to seek help from the king and queen.
Mr. Boris continued to explain that the king and his wife, who couldn't have children, agreed to help him on one condition, that he let them adopt me.
I only agreed as long as they allowed me to stay by your side. Your mother was so angry that she left us.
I stared at the photo and sobbed. Mr. Boris was my dad. It all made sense now why he was always there for me, why I always felt a connection with him. Just then, our moment was interrupted by a blood-curdling scream. What was that?
Hurry, Let's go find out.
We hurried to the front lawn and found Emma in a heated argument with an elderly couple wearing tattered clothes.
Emma dear, please don't be upset. We are so happy to see you. Who the heck are you? You're mistaking me for someone else. Emma, my daughter. I know you were just a small girl when we gave you to the Queen, but you can't forget your parents.
Emma tried to take Sebastian's hand, but he shoved her off him.
Don't touch me. I don't want your poverty rubbing off on me. Security, come throw this trash out.
Guards grabbed Emma and her parents, but before they could throw them out, I stopped them.
Stop! I'll take it from here.
Hi, I'm Jonna. Please come with me. As soon as we walked into the Queen's office, she screamed and took a step back.
Who are these people? Are we being robbed?
These are Emma's parents. You need to help them.
And why would I do that? I already spend a lot on Emma's stay here. Besides, she's been busy messing around with your chosen suitor. I don't owe them anything. They need to leave now. How can you be so cruel? You just don't get it, Jonna. If we helped every charity case that came to us, we'd have nothing. I can see now we made a poor selection when we adopted you for an heiress.
You know what? You don't have to regret your selection anymore.
I'm leaving the palace. Look, I know we probably have not been the most attentive parents, the king and I, but we have only wanted the best for you. Why would you want to leave us?
Because even though Mr. Boris was just my chauffeur, he was more of a parent than you guys were. All you did was lock me up and set me up with people who didn't even genuinely like me. I want to be more myself, be free to do whatever I want. I wasn't meant to be an heir. You said it yourself. The Queen surprised me with a hug. I hardly expected it, but she had never hugged me like this all my life. Was she sad?
I am so sorry I failed at being a mom to you, Jonna. I was overprotective, and I didn't give you a chance. You're right. You deserve to be free, and your dad will take good care of you. Just promise you'll come visit us from time to time.
I will take good care of her, Your Highness, and make sure she visits.
Thank you, Boris. You've always been kind. If you need anything, don't hesitate to call me.
The Queen kissed my cheek and left. I was still trying to process her reaction when Mr. Boris took my hand.
Come on, honey. We have some packing to do.
A few hours later, Mr. Boris and I drove to a cabin outside of town, and imagine my surprise when I saw Nicholas waiting. I was so excited, I ran up to him and hugged him.
Nick, what are you doing here?
Mr. Boris called me and asked me to meet you here.
Thank you, Mr. Boris. Dad, for everything.
So, Princess, are you ready for your new life?
You know I'm not a princess anymore.
You'll always be a princess to me.
That's so corny, Nick. I felt a sense of peace, as I knew with Nicholas and my dad by my side, I would always be okay.
You know how teenage boys sometimes deliver newspapers in their neighborhoods because it's such an easy job? First of all, it's not an easy job. Second of all, I'm not a teenage boy. I'm a woman in my early 20s, and yes, I competed with teenage boys to keep them out of my paper route. If my paper route was in any normal neighborhood, I wouldn't be so protective of it. But I belong in this neighborhood. It should be mine, because this is where all the rich people live. If you enjoy the story, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to our channel for more insane content. Every day I biked around this place, I felt like I was home. I used to belong in a place just like this, before my dad gambled all our money away. I imagined I was biking around in a yellow sundress until I realized I completely forgot to throw my newspapers on people's lawns. And then I had to awkwardly bike back to the beginning of the street. It's not like nobody's watching either, because all these rich old men love seeing a young woman biking around in front of their homes. I would have complained, but they did give me huge tips. My favorite mansion was at the end of the street. It's an amazing, luxurious, and stunning place. It almost looks like a palace. Sadly, the old man who lived there was the only one who never looked at me. Not even the one time I got off my bike and rang the doorbell to give him his newspaper. He was a crusty old man, but I wouldn't have minded dating him if it meant I could live in his mansion. I always scratched my head whenever I rode past that place, thinking of ways in which I could make it mine. One day, I saw the mansion's maid. It was super early in the morning, and she was rushing to work. Then I noticed something. She kneeled down at the side of the road and took something out of her bag. It sat on the grass. Then it started running around. It was a dog. Was she bringing it to work? I knew a maid and a gardener had been fired from one of the mansions nearby for bringing their pets to work. I started paying a bit more attention to the mansion and the old man. One time I biked past, and the man was telling off his gardener for giving his front lawn the wrong fertilizer. He was really upset about it. His face looked like it was about to explode, and the gardener was shaking. That's how a plan began forming in my mind. I waited until the maid went into the mansion to work. Then I slowly got off my bike and walked through the side corridor that led from the front lawn to the backyard, where the gardening shed was. I heard a few little whimpers, and I knew I was right in my suspicions. The maid hid her dog in the shed every day and then grabbed it on her way home. I could see the old man walking on his treadmill through the window, and I knew the workers were busy making everything perfect for him. I grabbed a shovel from the gardening shed and got to work. The lawn was so soft and delicate that it was incredibly easy to dig up holes and pull the bushes and flowers in some places out of the ground. The next step was releasing the little creature from the shed. I then bolted to the other side of the street and went about my paper route. Around 20 minutes later, I was back at the mansion, witnessing the old maid getting yelled at and fired by the man who looked like he was about to have a heart attack. I went straight home when I finished delivering my papers and put on one of the few dresses I kept from when I wasn't poor. I grew up rich, which had some advantages and some disadvantages when it came to becoming the old man's maid. I knew how to charm and be polite because I had to be the perfect, delicate, and sophisticated woman from my first word. The interview went famously, but then I realized I had to actually be a maid. I had a simple uniform, so clothes weren't an issue at all. The problem was, I grew up with maids. Do you think I ever learned to do as much as wash a dish? Of course not. I had to sneak off and watch an online tutorial on how to mop floors. Then I did it, but of course it was sloppy. The old man frowned whenever he saw my work, and I could feel how much he wanted to fire me when I spilled something or when the floors were a little dusty or dirty in some other way. He started being kind of rude to me, muttering that I was useless or that he should have found an older woman to do this, because girls these days don't know how to do anything. It pissed me off, of course, because I was trying my best, but I didn't say anything. I didn't want to risk losing the privilege of even being inside this gorgeous mansion. When the old man was out on business trips or meetings, I used the pool, the tennis court, the library, and even his shower sometimes. It was risky, but it was thrilling. Not gonna lie. The old man still didn't like me though, and I was pretty bad at my job. He was finally done with me when I messed up his coffee one morning.
How do you mess up an espresso? All you had to do is push a button on the machine.
He shouted at me. He had veins hopping out of his neck and his forehead. He looked like a rabid dog. I was surprised he wasn't foaming at the mouth.
I'm leaving. I want you out of this house by the time I get back, and don't you dare show your face here again.
He shouted while putting on his extremely expensive jacket and walking out of the dining room. I panicked. Damn it, what am I going to do? I can't go back to feeling poor, I thought. I paced around the kitchen, cleaning the counters, a habit I had developed to cope with stress. The only times the old man had been happy with my work was when my rent was due soon. I figured I should leave everything tidy, not for him, more for my ego. I was putting his clean suits in the closet when I noticed something. First, the place was huge. It was bigger than my entire apartment. The more important thing I noticed was that the walls were hollow and the vents were enormous. A light bulb turned on inside my head. I ran down to the kitchen and grabbed food that didn't need refrigeration. Then I grabbed my purse and all my stuff and some clothes I had stashed in the gym for when the old man was at home. I felt crazy while I did it, but I wasn't going to leave this beautiful place. I crawled into the vent, and that's where I stayed. My phone was charged, and I had a book with me, as well as food. If I couldn't work here, I was gonna live here, in the vents and spaces behind the walls. You're probably thinking, how did you not get bored? How did you have enough food? How did you survive living in vents? Well, I couldn't have done it without having worked for the man. I had his entire schedule memorized, and the only thing that ever changed was the occasional meeting. But that just gave me more time alone. I would walk around the house, get food, swim in the pool, and do all the stuff I used to do. Except now, I wasn't cleaning, and I wasn't getting paid. But how did I avoid the maids? I got them all fired. I knew exactly what the old man hated, so I sabotaged each and every one of the maids he hired. Soon enough, he didn't trust any maids in his home unless he was there too, which meant the house was completely empty when he was out. I was living my best life. Until one day, I was in the kitchen and I heard the front door open out of nowhere.
Grandpa, are you home?
I heard a man's voice echo through the mansion. I grabbed the bowl of cereal I was eating and climbed into the vent in the kitchen. The cereal almost fell out of my mouth when I saw the perfect specimen of a man walk into the kitchen. His face looked like it was chiseled out of marble. He was dressed casual, but rich casual, which is completely different from broke casual. He was the old man's grandson. He walked around the mansion looking for his grandfather, and I followed him around in the vents. He then put the bag he was carrying in the guest bedroom and went to take a shower. Of course, I didn't follow him there. That would have crossed a huge line. The old man came home later and they had dinner. Now this interested me. I climbed through the vents toward the one in the dining room and listened closely.
How long will you be in town, kid?
Asked the old man. I had never seen his features so calm and relaxed. He went from being a rabid chihuahua to a calm old pug. The young man, whose name I still didn't know, replied that he'd be there for a few months at least because he wanted to take a break after just having finished his PhD. I really wanted him here, but it kind of complicated the life I had going on here.
You can stay as long as you want, Ricky,
said the old man, putting his hand on his grandson's shoulder in a fatherly way. It was kind of adorable, but then I remembered this man was actually the devil. I watched Ricky every day. I got bored sometimes before he came, but now I had all the entertainment in the world, especially because he was super into movies. So I could watch a lot of them through the vents in the home theater. I loved everything I saw him do. He ate like 4 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches a day, and his laugh was so loud I could hear it even when I was in a vent all the way on the other side of the mansion. I started falling for him, and he was such a nice guy that I really wanted to talk to him. All I needed was for the old man to leave so I could get some time to charm Ricky in some way. God, even our names sounded great together. Erica and Ricky. Both grandson and grandpa went out one day, which was the perfect time for me to strike. I went into the old man's study and onto his computer. I had seen him put in his password countless times, so that was no problem. His email was full of important stuff. And you know what I did? I deleted everything. The worst was the newer emails that he hadn't checked, and some of them were pretty urgent. I listened closely in the vents as the old man got a call later and freaked out. Something had been messed up in one of his offices in Europe, so he had to go fix it.
Don't worry about it, Gramps. I'll take care of the house,
said Ricky, just as I expected. I recycled the same strategy I used on the grandpa, but this time on the grandson. I put on some cute shorts and a nice casual top and applied for a job as the pool cleaner. I had the manners of a rich girl, but had developed this laid-back and goofy attitude from having to laugh at my problems when I became poor, which I knew would be refreshing to Ricky, because girls of our social class hardly joked around. He hired me after talking for like 2 hours about random stuff, but I didn't do much cleaning. He would come out and take a swim when I was about to start working, and then he'd ask me to join him or grab a bite to eat with him. I could tell he was into me, but I played hard to get. Soon enough, I wasn't the pool cleaner. I was his girlfriend. Just imagine for a second the face the old man made when he came back and saw me in his pool with his grandson. Now I didn't hide in the vents. I walked around freely, and the old man hated it. He would step on my toes when I wasn't wearing shoes, or he'd spill my glass of wine at dinner. Dinner was the worst. He'd make little quips and jokes, hinting that I was a gold digger.
Your hands are destroyed. Did you ever have a job cleaning? Must be nice having a billionaire boyfriend after having been so poor,
he'd say. Ricky never really paid attention or caught on. He wasn't the brightest when it came to such things. The old man was digging his own grave, though. He didn't realize that I had already gotten my way 3 times in this house. First, getting his maid fired. Then, living here rent-free. And now, dating his grandson. Oh, Grandpa, that's the 5th time you spilled something today, I'd say sadly whenever he spilled stuff on me. Ricky started getting concerned. I overreacted with every mistake the old man made, or everything he forgot when it came to work. He didn't forget. I just deleted it from his computer. Ricky had him going to loads of different doctors, and with me as a witness of the old man's drifting mind, they gave him medication for all different kinds of mental stuff that old people get. Thing is, He didn't need them, so they just made him loopy. That must have been the reason why he made that terrible mistake. The mistake that took his life. He took an odd combination of his meds one evening, and the next morning he was no longer with us. Ricky was heartbroken, but he was slightly relieved that his grandpa wasn't suffering anymore. The house was quiet for weeks, but I managed to lift our spirits eventually. Ricky now owned the mansion, and I had freedom to do whatever I wanted here. I was basically the owner of this mansion. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking I poisoned the old man, that I gave him the wrong meds on purpose. But I would never. I would do anything to keep my privileged life in the mansion of my dreams, but I wouldn't poison an old man. I'm just an innocent young woman, right?